Hit it.
It's 6:45 a.m. Your shift supervisor needs to fill a vacancy. Two people want it, one with more seniority, the other with better attendance. Article 12, Section 3 of your union contract says seniority shall govern when qualifications are equal. But what does equal mean? You're not sure. Should you call your lawyer? It's early, and this seems pretty minor to start the meter running. ChatGPT gives you a solid sounding answer. You wing it. Give it to the attendance guy. 6 months later, an arbitrator rules you violated the contract. Back pay, fees, total damage 32 grand, and some harsh questions from upstairs. This is what we call the help trap. When you avoid calling an expert until small problems become expensive disasters. Fortune 500 companies solved this decades ago. They have experts on staff who know the answers or when to escalate. What if you can't justify a full-time labor relations director? That's what we're talking about today, why many companies are rethinking how they support managers using fractional labor relations.
I'm Michael Vandervoort, and I'm here with my co-host Phil Wilson to talk about why more companies are rethinking how they support their managers when it comes to union relationships and even employee relations. So, hey Phil, welcome to the Left to Boom show. How's the day?
Good, Michael. Although I think I'm sweating after hearing that cold open because that is a nightmare scenario that gets played out every day in unionized operations.
Yeah, and we as a consulting company, we help people with this kind of stuff. But we started thinking about it. I don't know if it's new, but we started thinking about it in terms of fractional labor relations, right? And so,
Hmm.
why don't you start out and tell us when we talk about fractional labor relations, what does that mean, and why is this model seemingly more relevant right now, maybe than it was in years past?
Yeah. Well, I think it is new. I mean, when this is obviously work that we've done for years, where we help unionized companies. It's maybe not what we're best known for, but we work with a lot of unionized companies, and this idea of fractional, fractional HR, fractional marketing, fractional legal, fractional
Hmm.
finance, like that. There's a lot of different areas where this fractional model has launched, but I haven't found anywhere that is talking about labor relations in this kind of
Right.
fractional concept. And the more that we started looking at it, the more sense it made. Like this might be the best place in throughout an organization where fractional really makes a lot of sense. It's super
Hmm.
specialized. The cost of getting the answers wrong are huge, and the traditional model for a mid-market company, like we talk a little bit about, the Fortune 500, the big companies solve this problem. But if you are a mid-sized company, or God forbid a smaller employer with a union, then you are really stuck between this rock and hard place of, I need advice, but I never really know for sure when I need it, and it's expensive to ask for it, and so I will talk myself into, well, this isn't one of those problems that's big enough to need to make an appointment with my
Hmm.
lawyer and to get that call scheduled, and then for them to go research it, and I think I can just wing this one. And the problem is, you're not a very good judge of when you need legal advice and when you need to have that lawyer on the phone. And so that's the place where fractional labor relations makes a lot of sense, is that you have somebody that you're not afraid to call. It's prepaid, so like, there's no additional bill. You just call anytime that you want to, but that person that you talk to has the expertise to know, either to just give you the answer, like, will solve this issue. This isn't a legal issue. This is just, here's how to interpret that clause in your contract. It's an operational
Hmm.
question, or we need to get we need to get legal on the phone because this is a legal issue, and you're going to want to get legal advice about this.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned to you this morning that I didn't actually realize until last night when I was thinking about this show and getting ready for it, that like 20 years ago, I did fractional labor relations for a year. I didn't, nobody called it that then.
Hmm.
I did bargaining. I bargained in two collective bargaining first time agreements. So back simultaneously with different unions, different units in the same facility. So I was traveling, two every other week or so, and spending 2 3 days, and we got through the contracts. Took several months as those
Hmm.
contracts do, and we weren't even trying to like stall or anything. We were trying
Yeah.
to settle it. It was a relatively normal agreement. It wasn't one where we were trying to, slow bargain or any of that kind of stuff. So it still took months. And then I did other project work, and I did that for a year, but it was 20 hours one week, 30 hours the next, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. But it really was fractional labor relations. Had the company that I did that work on behalf of had to hire a labor attorney to sit up there, it would have been way more. And as it worked out, I was kind of embedded in the team. So it was great, and it was a very effective method for the particular client that I was working with for that one year. Um, and this kind of goes to the like that you mentioned the Fortune 500 versus the smaller size organizations, something of an infrastructure gap, right?
Hmm.
Resources and all of that. You can't justify that kind of specialized expertise to be sitting on the payroll for
Right.
year round, right? So this is a great way to kind of get around that, right? So when you talk about that infrastructure gap, what's missing?
Well, go back to the example, like a Fortune 500 company, they have, a director of labor relations who has years and years of experience dealing with all aspects of working with a unionized company. They have probably labor relations managers that also have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
experience dealing with this. They have in-house legal expertise that also has years of experience dealing with this. And they have outside counsel who will be the best of the best, who they also can rely on, right? So when a plant manager has that same 6:45 a.m. call that you talked about in the open, they they have like an army of people that they
There's
can
like a
call for
whole,
advice.
a whole group of people that they can consult with and get an answer pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, and most of them are other employees in the company, and they you won't hesitate to call them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that model works. That model works great. The problem is if you're a mid-market company and you only have like one or two or three unionized locations, the cost of trying to replicate that, I mean, you wouldn't hire all those people, but the cost of even hiring one person who's got the expertise to be able to really know cold, the answers to most of the operational questions, and then also be able to tell you, this requires legal. That person's a $250,000, fully loaded salary. And,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make any sense to even try to find that person. When you found that person, they don't want your job anyway, right? You don't have enough work for them to do. So so that's why the mid-market companies are stuck. And so what we're trying to solve is that problem, right? When you have an operational issue related to a collective bargaining agreement or some issue with the steward or a grievance, you can pick up the phone and call any time of day or night, and you're going to get an expert on the phone who will either be able to answer the question off the top of their head because they've dealt with it for years and years and years. Like our consultants have worked inside Fortune 500 labor
Right.
relations departments, right? So you're going to get that answer, or they're going to know immediately, look, we need to get legal advice on this, and then like you should be talking to a lawyer. That gives you confidence that the answer is always going to be right. You're going to be using your legal resources when it's judicious to use them and when you need to use them. You're not going to be overusing them. So the other problem that a mid-sized company has, if you don't have that kind of a resource, and you don't have anxiety about making that call, you will rack up a lot of legal bills over things that
Mm-hmm.
are really operational questions that, to be honest, the labor lawyer doesn't really want to answer either, because it's not even a legal question. It's really just more, a run your business type of question. And like they're going to answer it, but like they have to bill you because it's time that they otherwise
Mm-hmm.
could be spent doing something legal. So like it's really it's it's this in between spot that is just a gap, and it's a resource gap. Mid market companies don't really have access to it, and so this is the problem that we're trying to solve.
And I think in those mid-market companies, leaders like you said, somebody gets a call and they got to decide, do I call the lawyer and spend
Hmm.
hundreds of dollars an hour for this call or not, or I can check with Chat GPT like we said in the
Hmm.
example. The tendency is to not you want to not jump in the deep end if you can. If you think you got
Right.
it and it makes sense, but that doesn't always go well. So there's I think there's a built-in hesitation when you lack the resources that you're talking about a Fortune 500 company having. So it's
Hmm.
not bad intent or bad leadership, but hesitation that drives a lot of preventable labor relations problems in these situations, right?
Yeah. Well, and look, to be clear, this is not about like lawyers are expensive. Yeah, we're
Right.
expensive too. Like it's not like a this isn't about like like lawyers are expensive or they charge too much or anything like that. It's that if you know that the meter is going to start running when you make the call, you are having to make a decision at that point about am I going to start the meter running, and and then when you're in that spot, like you're stuck with having to decide, is this big enough? Look, it's not just about the fees. You're like, I don't want to feel like an idiot when I get the lawyer on the phone and they like tell me, in 2 seconds what the answer is, and that yeah, I feel dumb, right? Like so it's partially that as well. Like you will talk yourself out of making a call that maybe you should make, because you just don't have enough experience and you don't have enough knowledge of like where the watch outs and the traps are. So that's what this is about. It's about trying to take the anxiety of making that call, take that away. If it's an operational question and not a legal question, it gets answered. If it is a legal question, it gets elevated, and then and we know like this is not a dumb question. So that's what this is about. And then at the point that you call the lawyer, like you should happily pay the fees, right? Like they are going to represent you well. They are going to litigate your case for you. They're going to want to make sure that the case is set up properly so that you can defend it well. That's the kind of stuff that having an expert helping kind of get you to that point saves a lot of resources, saves time, and then you're going to be paying, fees, but not they're going to be way way less than what you would have paid if you let the little issue turn into the giant arbitration case that's going to cost you 100 grand.
And sometimes, sometimes, even when you have what seems to be like a pretty logical case, not a legal case, but just a logical situation, and you're trying to make a decision about, say, keeping a plant location open or closed because of it's
Hmm.
productive or not.
Hmm.
And I remember a specific situation I was dealing with where we were in a multi-employer pension plan, and there
Right.
was pension withdrawal liability,
Yep.
and nobody in the company was thinking about that.
Hmm.
And we talked to an attorney who said, "Has anybody checked on the withdrawal liability from Central State's pension plan?" And we were like,
Oops.
"No." And he's like, "It could be significant," and it was like $2 million,
Hmm.
which was a big shift and caused us to rethink some of the stuff
Yeah.
that they
So
were
I mean,
thinking of.
sometimes it's a deal killer, right? It's like
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen it lots and lots of times, and that's the kind of thing that an expert they automatically know that they've been through enough of these to know like, oh, we need to check the contract and look if there's a defined benefit pension plan in there that most other people, especially in mid-market businesses, they just
right.
would never even think about.
Right, and this was actually this came the existing organization through an acquisition, right? So they kind of
Mhm.
bought, and they didn't even really find it in their own due diligence. It was kind of there after
Right.
that, laying there buried underground. Um, so I think you've talked about kind of the human inclination not to want to feel kind of like stupid, which
Hmm.
I don't. It's just you don't want somebody to think you don't know what's going on. You
Hmm.
also, as a manager, an operational person, not an HR practitioner, a lot of times you're budget sensitive and all that sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
know we're not trying to talk about cost, but that kind of those all enter this equation, right?
Yeah.
So what happens, or what's the risk, and what's the risk when supervisors try to handle contract interpretation or discipline decisions without having without reaching out to this type of support? I mean, we kind of mentioned a hypothetical, with an arbitration payout. What are the other risks?
Mm-hmm. Well, and by the way, in addition to kind of like, I don't want to feel dumb, it's also like, I don't want to feel like I'm wasting this lawyer's time. Like this
Right,
lawyer's got a bunch of other clients.
right.
It usually takes a little time to like get them on the phone because they're really, really busy. And like, so that's another reason that you might not make the call. And so, yes, there's all kinds of costs to these decisions. The problem is it's not obvious like which one is a potential really big expense and which one's not. And winging it, you get away with like enough of the
A lot of the
time.
time.
You
Yeah.
get away with it enough of the time that you can't really discern which one should I call about, which one I shouldn't call about. So obviously, like arbitration cases, that's a really big one, and those have dollars attached to them. So if you get into a grievance and you've already like violated the contract and it's clear, you're either going to have to settle that grievance for something, or if you continue to fight it, then you're rolling the dice on getting in front of an arbitrator, and that's got legal fees, that's got whatever the arbitrator awards. So that's one big expense. The other expenses that may not be quite as obvious are, you can erode your own contract. You can things that you have argued hard and bargained hard for to get into your agreement can end up like going away because you weren't kind of paying attention to past practice. Termination decisions might not even go to arbitration. You terminate somebody, and that might go to the EEOC, or it could go like outside of your organization, and there's fees and costs associated with those decisions as well. And then just like the organizational, you can get. We just talked about, you can have a deal that you've spent a lot of time on, and then there's like, oh, this giant like deal breaking poison pill that's in there that you never knew about, that if you had known about, you either just would have not spent all the time and effort, going
Right.
through the deal, or that would have at least been part of the calculation. So that's another place that happens. Those are some of the ones that, sort of immediately leap to mind.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. So we've kind of talked around it, but let's talk for a second specifically how a fractional labor relations model works.
Mm,
So walk us through what a company gets with fractional labor relations if they come to us for that type of service or someone else,
yeah.
and why is unlimited access such a critical feature?
Yeah, so we have tiers based on, it makes sense, right? Some people have, a lower amount of need. They've had a union for a long time. They already have a team that they handle the contract negotiations, so they don't need somebody to negotiate their contract. But what they really need is this just expert that they can call all the time. So that's tier one, and that basically is just, we are your phone a friend on any labor relations issue that comes up, and then we help you we help you either answer things, or we help you triage the things that need to go up to legal. So that's kind of tier one. So tier two company is somebody that is a smaller, maybe only has one to maybe three unions, and also might have, so their needs are higher. They're going to have more grievances to look at. They're going to have, more, other issues to discuss. So that's sort of a middle tier organization. That could include assistance during collective bargaining negotiations, whether we are advising the team that's bargaining or potentially even helping you bargain the contract as a first chair. And then there's tier three organizations they're probably on the cusp of being able to bring in-house some talent. You might actually have, like a labor relations manager or somebody, because you have maybe you have like 6 or 10 unionized locations, and that, we might bargain a handful of those contracts. Those are like the tiers that we have. The thing that's common to all the tiers is unlimited access. That's what gets you out of the help trap or the advice anxiety. So you feel comfortable at any point to call us and to ask for advice, and we're always there to give it to you. That's what's common, and that is what the Fortune 500 have all the time.
And and we're not. I mean, in a lot of companies will say, well, we have have a labor lawyer, have an employment lawyer, whatever.
Yep.
We're not really trying to replace that labor lawyer nor steal
You
their
have to have them. Like it's, absolutely,
rate.
like, we, you probably, if you have us engage as a fractional labor relations expert, you probably end up having more calls with your lawyer, but your overall legal expense is not going to be as much, because you're going to be calling early, and you're going to be calling at a point where, look, this case might go a little bit down the road for a legal issue, but if we had waited, it would have been a giant arbitration case, right?
Right.
So it's not that you don't talk to your lawyer. You talk to your lawyer every time that you have a legal issue. Like that's what you should be doing. So it's absolutely not in any way like a replacement for your labor lawyer. If anything, you're going to utilize them more, but you're going to be utilizing them for proactive, advice at early stages in
More
things.
effectively, hopefully.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, the fractional LR support kind of it augments the lack of infrastructure that a Fortune 500 company has built in because of the resources. So you don't need 40 hours a week, but you might need 15 or 20. We're that 15 or 20 hour bridge, I guess, is how I think of it.
Yeah.
We're going to release a white paper soon, very soon, I guess. And in the white paper, you lay out a cost comparison that we're releasing on the topic. Why does this model make financial and strategic sense for smaller, mid-sized companies?
Well, for most companies, and we're also simultaneous to this. We're running a labor benchmarking study. But the research suggests, first of all, that companies, mid-market companies, are spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars to manage this area with, and that they could be spending, a fraction of that if you do the fractional model. And again, that reduction in expense is basically stopping the blow up things that become really expensive. Like most arbitration cases aren't, $100,000, but the right case could be that or way more than that. So, avoiding those for a, small amount of money is going to pay off like wildly. So the return on investment, I think for most companies, and look, fractional doesn't make sense for every company. So you can actually go in. We have an ROI tool and this benchmarking data. Like you can figure out based on this is how much we spend. This is what our grievances look like. This is how many arbitrations that we've had. You can do the math for your own company, and you can decide, maybe this is something we should take a look at, or this isn't really a fit. Like that is knowable.
Well, and like you talk about costs, like you said, like back pay maybe, or an arbitration back pay or whatever. But when you say you have a ULP over a termination or whatever goes to hearing and got all the legal that you start adding up the legal fees, the remedies if you lose, et cetera. That becomes a big nut, which could have perhaps been avoided had you had in-house talent or a fractional person who kind of knew enough to keep you out of trouble in the first place, which is basically what we're trying to do, I think.
And it's not just the dollars, right? It's also the amount of time and headache and hours that you could spend doing something productive when you're helping gather documents and all the stuff that goes along with a legal case. So it's not even just like a straight up dollars and cents issue. And if you have somebody who's a labor relations expert who's seen a whole lot of situations go down, they can help you find things that, well, if we did the thing that you want to do, if we did it the way that you're suggesting, that is for sure not going to work. You're going to have an arbitration case. You're probably never going to accomplish what you're going to do. But hey, what I have seen work is why don't we try something like this? So it's not just keep you out of jail, but it's also accomplish the business thing that you want to accomplish without creating a labor relations nightmare.
Right. Because the more you can keep things level, and that the better off you are in your relationship. You're not stirring
Hmm.
angst with the union.
Yeah, right.
I think that kind of answered the question I was going to ask. Beyond cost, what changes immediately when supervisors know they could call early instead of guessing or kind of winging it, as you said earlier?
Mhm.
Is there anything else that comes to mind related to that question that you would mention?
I mean, you just mentioned, but the relationship with the union, right? Like,
Hmm.
they also don't like being surprised, having like supervisors make stupid decisions that they then have to go, listen to their member come up, and then they're going to have to file a grievance. And like, that's, the more time they spend dealing with that stuff, that's a pain for them as well. Having somebody who knows what they're doing, who cares about the relationship, uh, we we want to have a good relationship with the union. And if they know they're dealing with someone who's an expert, now, your mileage may vary and your union may vary. So not every union is invested in this idea. But like
Sure.
but most of them are, right. Like
Yeah.
they would rather their expert talk to your expert and try to like work. Is there a way that we could work this out without having to have a big, legal case about it? And
Hmm.
most of the time you can get that worked out. But you want to have somebody there that like they respect, that they know has, seen this movie before and knows how it works like that. So that's another big advantage is it helps your day-to-day relationship with your business partner, this union. It helps in that relationship as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of the tools about trying to decide if this makes sense, and
Mhm.
kind of the assessment you can do off the website. But let's talk about fit and implementation for a minute, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
So what couple of combined things. What indicators tell a company that they're a strong candidate for fractional LR support? And then assuming that somebody says, yeah, we want this, what does that look like in actuality? Do we
Yeah.
provide an individual? Is it a corp, is it a
Mhm.
so kind of explain that for what people would expect to receive if they signed on board to be a client.
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, the companies that are good candidates are companies that are spending a lot of money in this area, and that could be over a lot of different things. So either you have you might have labor relations talent that just isn't very good at this, right?
Hmm.
Or that could use this extra support. You have legal fees. You have your experience with arbitrations and grievances. So like you add up how much money are we spending in either FTEs or outside expenses, outside experts? How much money are we spending every year on that? Okay, so that's the number one way to know whether this is going to be of value to you, because fractional labor relations is, if it is like a fraction of the amount that you are spending, that spend should come down, and depending on how much you're spending, it may come down dramatically. So
Hmm.
that's number one. The other side of that is just your results. So like, are you losing a lot of arbitration cases? Do you have a lot of grievances? So those are the kinds of things that if you have an expert that's there that can deal with the union, and the union knows that they know what they're doing, that you can get to a point where it's like, look, guys, before you file that first step, call me and let's try to
Hmm.
figure out if we can let's figure out a way if we can just avoid the grievance in the first place. So your number of grievances should go down. The number of those grievances that go to arbitration should go down. When you go to arbitration, you should win. So like those are the kind of big numbers that you should be looking at to know if this is a fit for you or not. And then just if dealing with the union is a pain, for you, a pain point for you, that's another sign that like this could be useful. And look, you don't have to do it forever, right? You could try it, do a year and see if the results are, how is it? Is your life better? Are you spending less money? It's, that's knowable. You will, and again, we've got a tool that tells you the answer, right? And we're not, there's a lot of companies that if you come to us and go like, well, this is our spend, and we'll say, well, yeah, you're not a fit for this. Like you'll spend more with us than what you're spending right now. So whatever you're doing, just keep doing that. So that's sort of like who it's a fit for. And then, if you say yes, okay, I want to do this. Like what does that look like? Well, we onboard you. So it starts off with a very kind of in-depth couple week process of, we get to know you. We look at your labor agreements. We get to know your leadership team. Ideally, we also come out and conduct managing a union shop training with your leaders. A big challenge a lot of companies have is they don't spend any time or energy training their supervisors and training their management team on dealing with the union and working in a unionized represented environment. So if you don't train them on that, then yeah, of course you're going to have a lot of problems. So that helps us get to know you really well. It helps us get to know your team and your supervisors. So that's the onboarding process. And then you are typically assigned one person who's going to be your key contact, and that is who your first call will go to. But we're fortunate. We have a number of super talented, again, like former, way higher up than Fortune 500 labor folks that have done this for years and years and years. That team can also sort of jump in if the person that you want to talk to is in bargaining. There's still somebody who has decades of experience in this that can take that call and can kind of get you at least far enough through that situation until the person who really knows you, inside and out can get to. So we kind of have constructed this Fortune 500 labor relations department that we just rent to you instead of you having to like buy it for full price.
Right. Which by the way is a very frequent occurrence when you have a regular labor lawyer or employment
Mm-hmm.
lawyer who is often in bargaining with another client, and
Exactly.
you have something going on. Oh, I just had a decert petition drop at my location for the first time in my life. I need to talk to somebody. They have a colleague call. So there's a backup. So we have backup, right?
Yeah,
So
and I mean, and the
so
challenge with that is like a lot of times in that situation, the backup is an associate who might not have very much experience. It depends, obviously, or I mean, you could get another partner, but like the partners tend to, I mean, labor law partners are really busy. So like,
yeah.
so you're again, that just comes down to like you have to, and it goes into that decision calculus, right? That's the help trap. Is well, who am I going to talk to? How long is it going to take me to talk to him? All that sort of stuff. So that's our solve. We are, we're dedicated to getting answers back to you as soon as possible. We're really making every effort to kind of, like I said, give you the Fortune 500 labor relations department that mid-market companies just don't have access to.
Yeah. So we've alluded to a white paper coming out soon. We're doing this podcast, which will probably drop next week. I know that it's like we're recording it now, but it'll
Yep.
drop soon. We have a landing page dedicated to fractional LR. Kind of, we don't need to put the URL, or you don't need to spout that out because I'll put
Yep.
it in the notes. But what else? What else has come in? What else should people be thinking about? You mentioned the benchmark survey that
Yeah.
we're doing. You might want to highlight that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is that benchmark survey. So if you are a unionized company and you're listening to the podcast, please contribute to the benchmark survey. It takes about 7 minutes to fill it out, but your data gets it's anonymized, so no one knows like who said what on the survey, but it lets us compare all unionized companies that participate in the survey. You can compare to people in your industry. You compare to people who have the same union that you have. And it allows us to really, for the first time ever, have just a robust database of what are the experiences of all the companies that have unions. And that will only grow if we get as many people to participate in it as we can. We just launched the survey. We've already had like really really good experience with people taking it. But yeah, if you see this, please take the benchmarking survey. And we've got a couple bribes in there for participating, but you'll get a copy of our managing in a union shop toolkit. If you want a copy of my book, Managing the Union Shop, I'll sign it for you and send it to you for free. So if you just participate in that, we'd really appreciate it. It's good for the community. And then once we have a robust enough data set, anybody that participates, you're going to get an individualized report that says this is how you compare to the benchmark data. So that's it's a great value, and then we're going to be repeating that survey yearly going forward. But yeah, if you could participate in the benchmark survey, that would be great. We also have this ROI tool. So when we post the webinar, we'll put in the notes a place where if you want to go see, kick the tires a little bit and see if fractional labor relations is a fit for your company, you can take a look at that too.
All right. I think that wraps us up, unless you had anything else you wanted to add as a final thought.
No, we're really excited to, again, it's not like we haven't been doing this, but really thinking about sort of how this relates to kind of this fractional thing that is kind of happening across, pretty much all the other pieces of organizations, but this part hasn't really been serviced properly or serviced this well. So I'm excited that we're able to offer this to the companies that it's a fit for. I think it's really a game changer.
I just saw a fractional AI manager mentioned for the first time in the last couple of days. So it's even a thing over there. So all right, well, thanks, Phil. We'll chat again soon. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.